In this question, we are supposed to find the effective capacitance between points A and B. One common mistake made by students is to assume that this particular network is a balanced Wheatstone bridge, and hence to remove this capacitor C5 and then the circuit reduces in complexity, you can use normal simple parallel and series capacitance formula to solve the circuit. However, if you think for a moment, you will realize that this is not the case. For this particular Wheatstone bridge to be balanced, the condition to be met is C1 divided by C2 equals C3 divided by C4. Now this is definitely not the case, because C1 by C2 is 1 by 3, whereas C3 by C4 is 3 by 1. They are unequal, and hence the Wheatstone bridge is definitely not balanced. Needless to say, the bridge would have been balanced if one of the 1 microfarad and 3 microfarad capacitances in a single line, horizontal line, would have been interchanged. There are at least two methods to solve this problem, and we will demonstrate both of them. The first method is a plain mechanical method in which you use the basic formula of capacitance, namely C equals Q divided by V. There is another method, however, which is a more creative method. It uses symmetry arguments, and if you use this method, then you find that you arrive at the answer quicker. The method is definitely shorter than method 1, although it requires creative thought. So let us first see how to solve the problem by the mechanical method, that is method number 1. In this method, since we have to find the capacitance across A and B, we connect an external circuit across those terminals, and the external circuit will only contain a battery, an ideal battery having EMF which is equal to the potential difference equal to V. Clearly, once the circuit is made, the battery will supply a charge to the circuit, and a charge Q1 flows in this branch of the circuit, a charge Q2 flows in this branch. So the charges on the capacitor plates should be Q1 here and minus Q1 here, Q2 here and minus Q2 here. Let's say that a charge Q3 appears here and minus Q3 appears on this plate. Now clearly the charge on this plate plus the charge on this plate plus the charge on this plate must equal 0, because it was 0 initially, and there is no way that the charge can either increase, that is enter this particular volume, or leave this particular volume. And so by charge conservation, we know that these three charges, minus Q1 and Q3 and the charge on this plate, must equal 0. Hence, instead of writing a charge Q4 over here and unnecessarily increasing one variable, we apply charge conservation and we write Q4 in terms of Q3 and Q1, thereby reducing one variable. Clearly the charge on this plate will be Q1 minus Q3, and then the charge on this plate will be the negative of that, which is Q3 minus Q1. By a similar logic, the charge on this plate plus this charge, which is minus Q2, plus this charge, which is minus Q3, must equal 0, and hence the charge on this plate must be Q2 plus Q3. The charge on this plate must be the negative of that, which is minus Q2 minus Q3. Now you notice that there are totally 3 unknown charges, and they are Q1, Q2 and Q3. V is not treated as an unknown, it's a known EMF, and so we basically need 3 equations in order to find Q1, Q2 and Q3 in terms of V. And these 3 equations are going to be the 3 loop equations. So for example, if we travel in this lowermost loop in the clockwise direction like that, then the total potential difference that we get when we travel through the entire loop must be equal to 0. So the equation of course becomes V, which is the potential difference when we travel from this point to this point, plus when we go across this capacitor, the potential difference is going to be minus Q2 divided by 3 microfarads. Of course Q2 here I am assuming to be in microcoulombs, 3 is in microfarads, so overall Q2 by Q3 will be in volts. And finally when we go through the next capacitor in this direction, the potential difference that we encounter is minus Q2 plus Q3 divided by 1 microfarad. Now we are back to our starting point over here. So the total potential difference that we have encountered must be equal to 0. So I'll just move this equation up here, and this equation I will call equation number 1. I can get my second loop equation by traveling in this loop in the clockwise direction and reaching my starting point. So the equations which I get will be the following. When I travel through this capacitor from right to left like this, the potential difference that I encounter is Q2 divided by 3 microfarads. When I travel through the top capacitor from left to right like this, the potential difference is going to be minus Q1 divided by 1 microfarad. And finally, in the third remaining capacitor, the potential difference when I travel from top to bottom will be minus Q3 divided by 4 microfarads. I have reached my starting point, and hence the total potential difference must be equal to 0. So this is equation number 2. And finally the third loop equation can be got by traveling in this loop in the clockwise direction like this, and the terms involved in the equation will be as follows. If I travel through the bottom capacitor from right to left, the potential difference I encounter is Q2 plus Q3 divided by 1 microfarad, and in this capacitor when I travel from bottom to top, the potential difference is plus Q3 divided by 4 microfarads. And finally the top capacitor when I travel from left to right, the potential difference is going to be minus of Q1 minus Q3 divided by 3 microfarads, and the total potential difference in the loop is of course equal to 0. This is my third equation. Now if you look at these equations, you notice certain things. Firstly, Q1, Q2 and Q3, these are definitely unknowns. On the other hand, these are certain knowns or some constants: 3 microfarad, 1 microfarad, 4 microfarad, and for that matter even V is to be treated as a known because it is a known EMF. So clearly this is a classic case in which we have got 3 simultaneous equations involving 3 unknowns, and hence it is possible to find the unknowns, namely Q1 and Q2 and Q3, in terms of the other numbers which are given. And clearly if you apply a bit of dimensional analysis, then you will realize that each of these unknowns, when we evaluate each of these unknowns, for example if you evaluate Q1, you are going to get some capacitance in microfarads, because all of these numbers 1, 4 and 3 and so on are in microfarads, and this is going to be multiplied by V, which is in volts. So what I'm basically saying is Q1 is going to be K1 microfarads multiplied by V, which is in volts. Remember, K1 is not necessarily 1 microfarad or 4 microfarads or 3 microfarads, but it's definitely a physical quantity whose unit is microfarad. It could be a combination of 1 and 4 and 3 microfarads. So let me just take this equation over here and let us look at it a bit more. What I'm basically saying is the left hand side, after we find it by solving the 3 equations, we are pretty sure that Q1 is going to be in microcoulombs. Therefore the right hand side, whatever you get, must definitely be in microcoulombs. Now the only way to get microcoulombs with the given constants, that is with 3 microfarads and 1 microfarad and 4 microfarad and V, which is in volts, would be to multiply some number in microfarads with the only number in volts which is equal to V. And that is why I am pretty confident that the answer for Q1 in microcoulombs is going to be K1, which is some number in microfarads multiplied by V, which is in volts. Similarly, my answer for Q2 would be Q2 equals K2, which is some number in microfarads multiplied by V. Finally, my answer for Q3 would be K3, which is once again in microfarads multiplied by V. To reiterate, the unit of Q1 as well as Q2 as well as Q3 is going to be microcoulombs. The unit of K1 as well as K2 as well as K3 is going to be microfarads, while the unit of V over here as well as over here is definitely volts. Now I'll just move these equations up here for future reference, and let us remind ourselves of the original question, which was to find the capacitance C looking through the terminals A and B. And clearly CAB by first principles is going to be the total charge on the effective capacitance divided by the potential difference across it. So if you go back to the figure, the effective capacitance is basically a single capacitance representing this entire network, and the total charge which flows onto the capacitor is going to flow in this direction. Of course, internally it splits into Q1 and Q2, and so we know that the total charge is actually Q1 plus Q2. I replace Q with Q1 plus Q2 over here. Similarly, the total potential difference across the effective capacitance is this potential difference, which is nothing but V, the potential difference across the battery. So V is just the battery potential difference, or the EMF, which is the same thing in an ideal battery. I've got now the formula for CAB. In general terms, is going to be Q1 plus Q2 divided by V. Clearly, if I substitute from these final answers, CAB is going to be Q1 is K1 times V plus Q2 is K2 times V. The whole thing I divided by V, and so my final answer is going to be K1, which is of course in microfarads as discussed earlier, plus K2, which is also in microfarads. And this is of course expected. It's expected that the final answer is in microfarads, because of course we are trying to find out a capacitance. So this in short was the mechanical method to solve the question. We now turn our attention to the creative method, that is method number 2. But before actually starting the method, I want to establish an important result, and this result is the answer of the following question. What happens to the charges on the plates if the polarity of the battery is reversed? What I mean to say is, if I remove this battery and apply the same battery but in a reverse way, that is with the reverse polarity, what I will be doing is I'll be joining the negative terminal of the battery here and the positive terminal of the battery here. The EMF of the battery is still V. Clearly, the charges on the various plates of the capacitors, like Q1 on this plate and Q2 on this plate and minus Q1 on this plate and Q3 on this plate, Q2 plus Q3 on this plate, and so on and so forth, will undergo a change. But the question is, what type of change? In other words, if the charge on the left hand side plate of this capacitor is Q1 initially, now in a new circuit, if you had the same battery but with reversed polarity, could you be able to predict what charge would appear on this particular plate? And the answer, of course, is that every charge, be it Q1 or minus Q1 or minus Q2 or Q2 and so on, will remain the same in magnitude, but it will reverse in sign. In other words, the charge on this plate before the battery reversal was Q1, which is of course equal to K1 multiplied by V. But after the battery is reversed, the claim is that this charge will no longer be K1 into V, but rather it will be minus K1 into V. Similarly, this charge before the battery reversal was equal to K2 multiplied by V, and after the battery reverses it's going to be minus K2 into V. Let's now look at this charge, which is minus Q2 minus Q3, which means it was minus K2 multiplied by V minus K3 multiplied by V before the battery was reversed. After the battery is reversed, the claim is it is going to be K2V plus K3V. In short, every charge on any plate whatsoever of the capacitors will remain the same in magnitude but will reverse in sign. We will now try to understand the reason for this result. Let me get back my original circuit for the time being. So the battery polarity I once again reverse, and of course this becomes the positive terminal and this becomes the negative terminal. Now have a look at equation number 1. Let's try to recall how we got it. We traveled through this lower loop in the clockwise direction and we measured the total potential difference. We equated it to 0. Now when we traveled through the battery from right to left, the potential difference we encountered was of course V, and that is the reason for this term over here. Similarly, when we traveled through this capacitor from left to right, the potential difference encountered was minus Q2 divided by 3, and that's the reason for this term. And finally, when we traveled through the third capacitor from left to right like that, the potential difference we encountered was minus of Q2 plus Q3 divided by 1 microfarad, and that is the reason for this third and last term. Of course, when we completed our journey, we arrived at our starting point, and we know that the potential difference in a loop must be equal to 0, and that's the reason for the 0 on the RHS. Now let me assume that the battery is reversed in polarity from the very beginning, so I'm going to change this battery like that, and we are going to investigate what happens to equation number 1 because of the change which we made. So we choose to traverse this loop once again in the clockwise direction as before, and we realize that there is a change in one of the terms in equation 1. That is, when we travel through the battery from right to left as before, the potential difference that we encounter is no longer V, but rather it is minus V, and therefore it is this term which is going to change. We are going to attach a minus sign over here. Instead of V, we have minus V. Further, we still have assumed that the charge on this plate of this capacitor is Q2. That is, the name of the variable is still Q2. We are not claiming that Q2's value is the same as before, but the name of the variable is the same, and hence when I travel through this capacitor from left to right, the potential difference is still going to be minus Q2 divided by Q3. There is nothing different in the expression. The value may be different because the value of Q2 may of course be different. Likewise, this term too is not going to change. That is, you still get minus of Q2 plus Q3 divided by 1. Now the second equation was obtained by traveling this loop once again in the clockwise direction, and since the assumed charges are still Q2 minus Q2, Q1 minus Q1, and Q3 and minus Q3, at least the labels are the same. We are not, once again, we are not saying that the values of Q2 and Q1 and Q3 are the same. We are just using the same labels. Hence, clearly, this equation is not going to undergo any change. Equation number 2 will still look the same. And for a similar reason, this equation which is obtained by traveling the remaining loop once again in the clockwise direction, it's going to remain the same. And the basic reason why only equation number 1 changes but equation number 2 and equation number 3 are unchanged is that equation number 1 contains this term. It did contain a term v which became minus v, and the term v was absent both in equation number 2 and in equation number 3. Now what does this change in this term, that is v becoming minus v in the first equation? What bearing does it have on the solutions for q1 and q2 and q3? You can imagine that you solve equation number 1 and 2 and 3 by Cramer's rule. Clearly, to apply Cramer's rule, you will have to rearrange the equations in such a way that the unknown terms q1 and q2 and q3 appear on the left hand side of all the equations, and this v, it travels to the right hand side. Now you are well aware that when you write the solution for q1, let us say by Cramer's rule, you get it as the division of two determinants, and the determinant in the numerator is going to contain the term v. So just imagine that when the battery polarity, before reversing the battery polarity, whatever value of v you substituted in this determinant, you are now going to substitute a value of minus v in its place, and that is because in equation number 1 v has got replaced by minus v. Clearly, when we expand these two determinants and simplify, the answer for q1 after battery reversal is different from the answer for q1 before battery reversal only in the sign of the term v, which means the following: our former answer before battery reversal for q1 was q1 equals k1 multiplied by v, and since after battery reversal I am supposed to change the sign of v, the answer I will get is q1 is minus k1 into v. Likewise, q2 will now be minus k2 into v instead of k2 into v, and finally q3 will be minus k3 multiplied by v instead of k3 into v. So if you look at the charge on any plate of any capacitor, what is going to happen because of battery reversal is the sign of the charge will change but the magnitude will remain the same. For example, let's look at this charge q2 plus q3 on the left plate of this particular capacitor. Before battery reversal, the charge was k2 multiplied by v, because q2 was equal to k2v, plus k3 multiplied by v, which is the value of q3 in the initial circuit without battery reversal. Now if you reversed the battery, of course the charge q2 becomes minus k2 into v, and similarly the charge q3 is not k3 into v but minus k3 into v. In short, from k2 into v plus k3 into v, the charge on this plate has now become minus k2v minus k3v, which once again tells us that the charge on the plate of the capacitor has remained the same in magnitude but has reversed in sign. And this result leads us to the second method to find the effective capacitance between points A and B. So what we are going to do is we will now bring the circuit back to its original form by putting back the original polarities of the battery plates like this. And now, for a certain reason, I am going to rename the charges on the plates. Of course, q1 and minus q1, I'll keep them the same. So also q2 and minus q2, and also q3 and minus q3. But in place of the charge q1 minus q3, which I get by charge conservation on this left plate, I'm going to write here q4, and likewise in place of q2 plus q3 here I'm going to write q5. Needless to say, this will become minus q5, and of course once again needless to say, this charge is going to become minus Q4. So I'll put a Q4 over here and a minus Q4 over here, and likewise I'll put a Q5 here and a minus Q5 over here. Now when I renamed the charges, you may feel that I have increased the number of variables. That is, the variables are now Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 and Q5. There are 5 unknowns, and of course I have to therefore generate 5 simultaneous equations. Now actually I have not yet applied the 2 charge conservation equations. That is, I can apply the charge conservation equation for this particular volume, in which case I need not write Q3 over here. I can write plus Q1 minus Q4, because the total charge on this plate and this plate and this plate must be equal to 0. So that reduces my variable by 1, and that's because the charge on this plate, I no longer have to use the symbol Q3. I use the symbol Q1 minus Q4. Likewise, the charge on this plate, I don't write it as minus of Q3. I rather write it as Q4 minus Q1. It's the charge on this plate, which I write that way since it is the negative of the charge on this plate. So what this has done is to effectively remove Q3 from this group or set of variables or unknowns, and I'm left with only 4 unknowns, that is Q1, Q2, Q4 and Q5. Now I'm going to get rid of Q5 in a likewise manner. Just imagine that I apply charge conservation to this particular volume. So what would happen is Q5, which is this charge, minus Q2, this charge, and plus Q4 minus Q1 will be equal to 0, and that would of course mean that Q5 I can replace it with Q2 minus Q4 plus Q1. So this charge Q5, I need not write it. I can write it in terms of Q2 minus Q4 plus Q1, and the negative of that, that is minus Q2 plus Q4 minus Q1, would be written here in place of minus Q5. Now what that means is Q5 we have got rid of, and we are left with 3 unknowns, just like in method number 1, and we have 3 loops, so we write 3 loop equations and get the 3 unknowns Q1, Q2 and Q4. And finally, of course, the capacitance between terminals A and B is going to be like before, Q1 plus Q2 divided by V. And so what I'm essentially saying here is, by renaming the capacitor charges as Q4 and minus Q4 and Q5 and minus Q5 on this capacitor, we are essentially not changing anything substantial in the solution. We have not done anything yet of substance, which is different from what we did previously. Even if we rename the charges, as I just said, we can solve it like method number 1, and we will of course get the same answer. Of course, we are not going to solve it actually by that method, because there will be no difference between method 2 and method 1. So you can see that I have drawn the circuit, the original circuit, with the charges on these 2 capacitors renamed as Q4 and Q5. Remember, we still have 5 unknowns, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, Q5, and hence we do require 5 equations. Now the method we will follow is, we will use certain symmetry considerations, and we will reduce the number of unknowns by 2. We'll reduce the number of unknowns by 2. So after applying these symmetry conditions, we will be left with 3 unknowns, and hence of course at this stage we will require 3 equations. The next step would be to apply charge conservation as before, and in doing so these three unknowns will get reduced to two unknowns, because we'll be applying charge conservation once and not twice. So finally you are left with two unknowns. From 5 unknowns, the complexity of the question has been reduced considerably by applying simple symmetry conditions and one simple charge conservation equation. Finally, we will apply two loop equations to get the two unknowns, and hence we will proceed to find the capacitance of the circuit. The symmetry conditions are obtained by reversing the battery. That is, suppose that the battery which was present from the very beginning was connected in this manner rather than in the previous manner. Now don't be in a hurry to apply the battery reversal rule which we just now discovered. We will apply that rule later. Rather, try to look at the symmetry of the problem. We will now show that after the reversal of the polarity of the battery, the circuit is electrically identical to the circuit which we had before the battery was reversed. Before the battery reversal, that is in the original circuit, terminal A was the positive end of the circuit because it was connected to the positive end of the battery, while this was the negative end of the battery, and so terminal B was the negative end of the circuit. When we traveled from the positive end, that is terminal A, to the negative end, that is terminal B, through the top branch we encountered a 1 microfarad capacitor, this one, followed by a 3 microfarad capacitor. On the other hand, when we traveled in the lower part of the circuit through this branch from the positive to the negative terminal, we encountered first a 3 microfarad capacitor followed by a 1 microfarad capacitor, and of course there was a 4 microfarad capacitor which was connected vertically in between. On the other hand, after the battery is reversed, this becomes the positive terminal and this is the negative terminal. So that means that B is now the positive end of the circuit and A is the negative end. We will once again travel from the positive end to the negative end, but this time we have to start at B and end at A. Let us travel through the lower branch of the circuit first. So when we travel from B to A this way, then we note that we first encounter a 1 microfarad capacitor followed by a 3 microfarad capacitor. On the other hand, when we travel from B to A through the upper branch this way, we encounter a 3 microfarad capacitor first followed by a 1 microfarad capacitor. We also note that there is a 4 microfarad capacitor, this one, which is connected vertically in between. The conclusion is quite obvious. That is, when we reverse the polarity of the battery, the terminal B now plays the role of terminal A, that is the role of being the positive terminal. Similarly, terminal A now plays the role which was formerly played by terminal B. In other words, terminal A now becomes the negative terminal. Also, the roles of the top branch of the circuit and the lower branch of the circuit are interchanged once I reverse the polarity of the battery. And finally, the vertical 4 microfarad capacitor plays the same role as before, excepting that the role of the top plate and the bottom plate are now reversed. Noting all these points, we can now find the charge distribution in the circuit after the reversal of the battery. But before starting, please note that the charges Q1 minus Q1, Q4 minus Q4 and so on, which we have written in red, are the charges in the original circuit, that is before the battery was reversed. Hence we are going to write the charges in the new circuit, that is after battery reversal. We are going to write those charges in blue. We note that after the battery reversal, this capacitor plays the same role as this capacitor. Both of them are 1 microfarads and they are similarly situated. To be more specific, this particular plate of this 1 microfarad capacitor after battery reversal plays the same role as this plate of this 1 microfarad capacitor in the original circuit. Now what this means is, after battery reversal, this charge will appear on this plate, and of course, needless to say, this charge of minus Q1 will now appear on this plate. So I'm going to write in blue the new charges appearing on the plates. This charge will be Q1 and this charge will be minus Q1. Similarly, after battery reversal, this capacitor plays the same role as played by this capacitor in the original circuit, and in particular this plate plays the same role as this plate in the original circuit. So it's easy to see that this charge which appeared in the original circuit on this plate will now appear on this plate of this 3 microfarad capacitor in the final circuit. And so the charge on this plate of this 3 microfarad capacitor, I'm writing it in blue because it's the final charge after battery reversal. That's going to be Q2, and of course the charge on the left plate is going to be minus Q2. We can similarly write the new charges appearing on the remaining plates of the remaining capacitors, that is on this plate and this plate and this plate, this plate, and the 2 plates of the vertical capacitor. However, from the viewpoint of solving the question, it is sufficient to write the charges on the 2 plates of this capacitor and this capacitor. We are now free to use the result which we derived earlier, namely that in a capacitor circuit, if we had applied the same battery but we reversed the polarity, then all charges which appeared in the original circuit will remain the same in magnitude, but they will simply reverse in sign. For example, if you look at this plate, then you know that the charge which was on this plate before the battery was reversed is given over here. It's minus Q5. Clearly, with the battery reversed, the charge which is going to appear on this plate is the negative of this, which is going to be Q5. However, we have already established that after battery reversal, the charge appearing on this plate is going to be Q1. It follows therefore that Q5 must be equal to Q1 both in magnitude as well as in sign. We mentioned in the beginning that because of symmetry, we would be able to write 2 equations, and hence we would effectively reduce the number of unknowns by 2. Now we already have one of the equations, namely the equality between Q1 and Q5, which I'm going to write over here. Q1 is equal to Q5. Similarly, after the battery is reversed, this charge of minus Q4 which appeared on this plate will obviously become plus Q4. But we have already established that the charge on that plate is going to be Q2. Clearly, Q2 must be equal to Q4, and this becomes our second equation. Finally, we are in a position to go back to our original circuit, in which we can use these 2 equations to reduce the number of unknowns. So as a first step, I will now remove these blue colored charges because I no longer need them, like that, and I will also bring the battery's polarity back to the original, like that. And so we have got back our original circuit with the 5 original unknown charges Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 and Q5. We now make use of the fact that Q1 is equal to Q5, and so this Q5 and minus Q5 which I have written over here, I am going to change it to Q1 over here and minus Q1 over here. Similarly, I'll make use of the fact that Q2 is equal to Q4, and therefore this Q4 and minus Q4 written over here, I'm going to replace it, and in its place I'm going to write Q2 over here and minus Q2 over here. Please note that by using symmetry, we have actually succeeded as promised earlier in reducing the complexity of this particular circuit, because now the number of unknowns is 3 as compared to the previous number, the original number, which was 5. Now just to simplify things, I am going to remove those parts of the solution which we will no longer require. We have already used them. So Q1 is equal to Q5, I remove it. Q2 is equal to Q4, likewise I remove. And also we have utilized the symmetry condition, and we have of course reduced the number of unknowns. So this part I'll just remove it like that. Of course I did have 5 unknowns, and therefore I did require 5 equations. That's no longer true, so I'll remove this. And we do have now 3 unknowns. This is the stage of the solution where we are right now, so I'll just move this up over here. The next step of course is written over here, that is we have to apply charge conservation equations. We have to use one equation and reduce the number of unknowns further from 3 to 2. Now if you look at this particular volume, clearly there is no possibility of any charge either exiting or entering this volume, and hence the sum total of these charges must be, these 3 charges Q3 minus Q1 and Q2 must be equal to 0. So I'll write that equation: minus Q1 plus Q2 plus Q3 is equal to 0. One may be tempted to write a similar charge conservation equation to this particular volume, and the equation that we would get would of course be Q1, that is this charge Q1, and the second charge is this one minus Q2, and the third charge is minus Q3. Minus Q3 is equal to 0. Now you note that this equation is nothing but this equation multiplied by minus 1. In other words, these two equations are no longer independent of each other, unlike in method number 1 where we did get 2 independent charge conservation equations. Clearly in this method, when we used the symmetry equations and we simplified the charge distribution, we indirectly made these 2 charge conservation equations dependent on each other, and hence of course we will not apply the second charge conservation equation. I'll remove it, and that is the reason why we apply the charge conservation equation only once in this method for this particular problem. From this equation, clearly Q3 is equal to Q1 minus Q2, and what I am going to do now is, if you look at the circuit, you realize that there is a charge here Q3 and a charge here minus Q3, which I am going to rewrite in terms of Q1 and Q2. Please note that in doing so I am further reducing the complexity of the circuit. So I rub out Q3, and of course in its place I am going to write Q1 minus Q2 like that, and likewise in place of minus Q3 I am going to write Q2 minus Q1 like this. So as you can see, I started at this step with 3 unknowns Q1, Q2 and Q3, and by charge conservation I further reduced the number of unknowns to 2. So all these things have already been done, and so I'll remove these 3 lines like that, as well as the charge conservation equation which I have written over here and already used. So obviously now what remains is only the 2 loop equations which will be used to find the 2 remaining unknowns, that is Q1 and Q2. So what I'm going to do is now to travel in this bottom loop in the clockwise direction and apply the corresponding loop equation. So I begin from this point, and when I go through the battery, the potential difference rises by V, so that's my first term. Secondly, when I go through this capacitor from left to right, the potential difference is going to be minus Q2 divided by 3 microfarads. Note that Q2 is in microcoulombs once again, so Q2 upon 3 will be in volts. And finally, when I go through this capacitor from left to right, the potential difference I encounter is minus Q1 divided by 1 microfarad. I have reached my starting point, so the total potential difference must be equal to 0. This is equation number 1. Now while choosing the second loop, I could choose to travel in this direction in this loop, or maybe in this loop in this direction. But if you actually write the loop equations for these two loops, you will find that you will get equations which are dependent on each other. Now this arises because you have already used symmetry conditions, and this leads to the fact that you get two dependent loop equations. Now of course, I can choose any of these two loops to write the loop equation. It really doesn't matter. So maybe I can choose the left loop and go through it in a clockwise direction as shown. If I go through this capacitor from right to left, then the potential difference I encounter is Q2 divided by 3 microfarads. Note that Q2 is in microcoulombs. This is 3 microfarads down here, so the quotient is going to be in volts. Similarly, when I go through the top capacitor from left to right like that, the potential difference that I encounter is minus Q1 divided by 1 microfarad. And finally, when I go through the vertical capacitor from top to bottom, the potential difference that I encounter is Q2 minus Q1 divided by 4 microfarads. And since I've reached my starting point, the total potential difference must be equal to 0, and this is my second equation. You now have to solve these two equations for Q1 and Q2, of course treating V as a constant. Now when you actually solve these equations, the answers that you get are Q1 equals 7 multiplied by V divided by 12, and Q2 equals 5 multiplied by V divided by 4. Now the final calculation is the calculation of the capacitance across terminals A and B, and C, this capacitance, is given by the total charge supplied by the battery to the positive plate of the effective capacitor. So that's going to be Q1 plus Q2 divided by the potential difference across the effective capacitor, which is also the potential difference across the battery, so that's divided by V. Now if you substitute for Q1 and Q2, you get the final answer for C, and that turns out to be 11 divided by 6 microfarads.